Hello, I'm Melissa Chand, and I'm guest hosting this week for a few days. You are watching Al Jazeera's The Stream Home Edition, and today we're going to be talking about Mali. 3 weeks ago, a coup took place there after a summer of protests. So now, what does the future hold for this West African country? As usual, get on YouTube, post your comments and questions. We'll try to get to as many as possible so you too can join the stream. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to our guests, Niagale and Fatima and Mohammed. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves to everyone. We'll start with Niagale.
Hello, I am Niagale Bagayoko, and I am the chair of the African Security Sector Network, which is a think tank working on democratic security governance.
Welcome, Niagale. Fatima, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Fatima Al-Ansar. I'm from Mali. I'm a political analyst at the Center for Strategic Studies. I'm also the founder of Tilwat Peace Network in Mali.
And last but not least, Mohammed, tell us about yourself.
Hi all, I am Mohammed Salaha. I'm independent journalist based in Bamako. I write extensively on the Sahel region about security and conflict. I'm also a political analyst.
So 3 weeks ago, Mali saw a coup, and ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, responded by essentially slapping sanctions on the country, closing down their borders to the country, and also stopping the flow of money there. In addition, you have the fact that there are 45,000 refugees in Mali. Those are people coming from outside the country to Mali. And internally, you have internally displaced people, 250,000 people. You have 15,000 UN peacekeeping troops, and from France, 5,000 soldiers. That is the context of this coup, which has drawn a variety of opinions from people in Mali. Have a listen.
People are afraid of the military power. They just have to clean up the country, sweep away all the bad people, but they must not take power and refuse to give it to civilians.
Civil rule has lasted too long in this country. It's necessary to turn to the military rule now to see what will happen, because with them there is no mercy and no nonsense.
Mohammed, I'm going to start with you. How has it felt out there? Do people feel uneasy? Are people happy as a result of what has happened?
I think that this is two ways. Some people are happy because the former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita has been removed. Some people say that it's a resignation for them, but it's a coup d'etat because military took him out of the power. So several months ago, there have been protests ongoing in the country claiming for the resignation of Ibrahim Boubacar Keita. So this is a result. His resignation is a result of a long protests ongoing in the country. And other points why people are unhappy, it's about, as you mentioned, the sanctions on the country, on Mali. ECOWAS, the West Africa Economic Regional Board, have put some sanction on Mali, which is not good for Malian people. Now we can't have access to money coming from abroad. And it's not only on Malian people. If we have UN troops in Mali, we have French forces armies, we have G5 Sahel, we have also the European Union who are fighting against terrorism and training Malian soldiers. So those things are really hard for Malian people and partner who works in Mali.
I want to turn to some of the responses that we've gotten on Twitter to our questions over the last 24 hours. For example, here we have Mokhtar Kane saying the coup brought about a change of leadership, but not a change of habits. Here's another opinion from Babatunde Raji. Most important is for the citizens to observe peaceful understanding within themselves, having the representatives fully on ground at the negotiating tables with soldiers, and let ECOWAS negotiate a peaceful transition by mid next year while international aids come aboard. Here's a third opinion. ECOWAS should be at the forefront of all international community engagement for the situation to ensure that decisions made reflect the reality on the ground and the aspirations of the people of Mali. Of course, we'll talk a little bit more about ECOWAS, but it seems to be a divided opinion on the ground in terms of people who support ECOWAS's engagement and involvement, and people who feel like that is an outside organization imposing in timelines and opinions on the people of Mali. But I want to talk a little bit about the drivers of the protest. Fatima, could you talk a little bit about why people have been taking to the streets over this past summer?
And plus security, political issues, and then the people were very unhappy about the way he ended the legislative election in March. So because he did a very partial way of handling the issue, so that actually have pushed people to be on the streets. And since they have been on the streets since March and since June actually, and they have been going on the street and with some revendication. First, they wanted the president to resign from his power, but since the president, they were able to negotiate with the Imam Diko was able to negotiate with the president and the M5 movement. So finally, they came out together. They were like, okay, no longer, our demand is no longer to resign. Now what we want is, we want to dissolve the National Assembly, we want to dissolve the core constitutional, and also we want you to actually create a unity government. But unfortunately, they did not actually agree on something with that. So because of agreements, since they couldn't find a common agreement, so they keep
Right.
so the protesters keep being on the street, and then the military intervened.
Niagale, I'm curious, did you predict what would happen 3 weeks ago?
It's very difficult to predict, but the only thing I can say is that there were some rumors about that the military could intervene to solve the situation, which was really blocked. The question, in fact, was to establish who would intervene, because what is very important to understand is that the military is not a very unified body, is not monolithic. It's important to see that there are different streams, inside of the military, and some of those streams are linked to the politicians, to the political elites, including two former elites affiliated to Boubacar Keita. You have very different streams, and there were indeed some rumors saying that a coup could happen, and in fact that's what has succeeded. And
Right.
the problem is now how people within the junta are in fact interacting both with the political elite, but also with the political opposition.
Yeah, and this is just coming in through YouTube in terms of talking about the military. Jim Fall has a question. Can the military be trusted? Fatima.
So your question is, can we trust the military?
Sorry, the question is, can the military be trusted? Do you think that the military can be trusted during this transitional period?
I don't think the problem is, the question shouldn't be about should we trust the military or should we not trust the military. Right now, the military are the one in power. They are the one, after so many social political crises in Mali, they were the one who put an end in terms of the former regime. So right now they got the power. And I think the question shouldn't be about should we trust the military or not. The question is how can we help the military right now to better transition. So which kind of personality, which kind of leader should we put in place to actually handle the transition? How should the shadow of the transitional look like? How long the transitional should look? I think the question should be around, should we trust the military?
Yeah, Mohammed, earlier you were talking about the presence of UN peacekeepers as one of the variables, one of the issues that the country has to deal with this new leadership. We have a video comment from William Nomikos on this. Have a listen to what he thinks are the challenges of the UN peacekeeping troops and this new transitional government.
United Nations peacekeeping is incredibly important to the stability of Mali. The military can't fight the armed groups in Mali on its own. But this coup has created a real dilemma for the UN because it had for years aligned itself with the Keita government. The popularity of the coup tells us that the Malian people themselves were dissatisfied with the government and by extension, the United Nations. If the UN loses the support of the Malian people, it effectively loses the conflict in Mali.
And I'd said it was a transitional government, but that is certainly the hope. We don't quite know how this is going to play out. Mohammed, I'm curious about your thoughts on that comment. Do you agree with what he said?
I think that what he said, there are some points which are very important. I want to jump on. It's true that the presence of UN peacekeeper is very important for Mali, not only for peacekeeping, but also for the human rights aspect. And we have to notice that UN peacekeeping are present in Mali, but from year to year, the crisis is intensifying. Before the arrival of UN in Mali, we have the problem, security problem issues were only in the north, but now it is also in the center. So it's become more and more bigger. But that show that the UN peacekeeping have a lot of work to do, and they need to work hard to come up with solution to end this crisis which is developing from the north to the center. Obviously, UN peacekeeping and Malian soldiers are partners. They work together to protect Malian civilian and to settle peace and stability in Mali. So their presence is important, is very important for Mali, but they need to work hard and come up with concrete solutions.
Niagale, do you agree with what Mohammed said?
I definitely agree that it is important to consider the UN presence beyond the military aspect of it. And indeed, the role of the Human Rights Division is absolutely key because it has been documenting a lot of abuses, both from the armed groups, but also from the security forces, Malian security forces. So their role is absolutely crucial. It is also important to say that MINUSMA, the UN mission, is not the only player on the ground. You have other international actors who are present. You have also the French forces via the Operation Barkhane, and also the G5 Sahel forces which are there as well. And in fact, they all have different mandates, but what one has to recognize is that despite all those forces, it's not enough to counter the multi-dimensional threats that are at stake in the Malian context and more broadly in the Sahelian context.
And while we've been talking, we have another comment through YouTube. Not Corded says, can the international community play a role in this crisis on Mali, which we've been just talking about? And this person goes on to say, I mean, if it's the military control all over, can it be influenced in any way if the other nations are trying to interfere. So you definitely have two views. Some people seeing international involvement as a way to help assist the country to go through a transition and to hopefully get elections soon. And of course, there's an argument about how soon elections should be held. Within 1 year seems to be what France and ECOWAS wants. But there are people on the ground asking for more time, including the military leaders in question that are running things. The other comment we have is Walter Hebert saying the rebel groups are so powerful because they receive support from powerful leaders. There is a lot going on in terms of challenges. I want to quickly go into the domestic challenges of food security, economic security. Mohammed, could you talk a little bit about how people are feeling about the state of the economy in Mali?
So the Mali economy is suffering several years ago. Before of a terrorist group in the north, Mali economy was suffering. But since those people arrived, it became more and more worse. And also, this coup come to make the situation worse again, because as you mentioned it now, Malian can't receive money from abroad, and the situation is becoming tricky. In 3 weeks, 3 weeks, no money come from abroad to Mali, and this make the situation very confusing. And Malian are calling now ECOWAS, the West African Region Board, to do concession for Malian people, because now Mali needs a new Mali need a new look. Mali need to go out of these problems, and these problems which are making Malian suffering. So ECOWAS just need now to see clearly to end the sanctions so that our economy can move from a point A to a point B.
And so that's the immediate thing to deal with in the future. But of course, the long-term future is the question of elections. Who's going to actually run the country? We have another community video comment from Gilles Yabi. Take a listen to what he says.
I do believe that this transition should be used as an opportunity, of course, not to fix all the problems that the country have, but I think that it should be an opportunity for the Malians to discuss the kind of political reform that have to happen. And I think that the mistake that is usually committed by a lot of people, including international actors, is to push to quick elections in conditions that do not actually make these elections very meaningful for the population. Malians want to have a real discussion about institutions, a real discussion about corruption, a real discussion about ways to restore security in the country. And I think that the transition has probably to last at least 1 year and a half, maybe 2 years, to be able to tackle these issues and not just focus on elections.
Fatima, I'm curious because you've been a participant of the weekend meetings that have just kicked off between the military leaders with the opposition. There was some controversy in terms of getting the opposition represented in all the working groups that will discuss the future of the country. Do you agree with what was just said by Gilles Yabi in terms of taking more time before there is going to be another election?
Yes, I think I kind of agree with him at some way, because I think that the most important thing is not about the timing or who should be in transition. I always say that I think the most important should be the content of what the transition, like what kind of questions should we be discussing. And that's why I think like it was very important that they organized the national consultation to talk about like what should be in the term of references, what should be like discussed in the national consultation, what are like the real problem of the Malians. So what are the real problems of Malians living in Gao, in Timbuktu, in Segu? So what are like the challenges that the country is facing so that we can avoid another coup again? Because I don't think trying to rush another quick transition, we might end up going to do the same thing. Because in 2012, there was a coup d'etat, and now again there's another coup d'etat. So that means that there's something going on. It's not a question about how long the transition should be. Like, what is the real issues in Mali, and how can we overcome that? So that's why I think that the national consultation on the term of references was very, very important, and I really encourage them to really take their time to develop better the term of references, and then try to make the consultation very inclusive so that all the Malian voices are heard.
Niagale, do you agree with that? And do you have confidence that the military and the opposition and all the stakeholders will reach some kind of agreement to move forward?
I think that clearly the military are not the only stakeholders, and they definitely have to negotiate with the other actors in the country. We have seen that last week when it was announced that the transition would be long and that there might be a military who would take the lead. There has been a lot of protests from M5 RFP in particular, saying we don't want the revolution to be stolen by the military, because a lot of people do consider that the military intervene to support the popular protests and not per se. But I definitely think, as my colleague, that a real work needs to be done on what is the project for the future in the country. It will not be enough to organize elections, because today it is not only President Ibeka who is contested. In fact, it is the political elite more globally. And as you can see with the success of personalities such as Imam Dicko, there are other voices who definitely have a new legitimacy. And today you have a lot of components which have to be included in this transition. So no need to hurry up. There is a need to work very seriously on what is the way forward and what kind of project, from a security point of view, from a political point of view, in terms of development, in terms of education. It is the issue at stake, in fact.
And I want to share another comment on YouTube. Upnatsa Natse saying the situation in Mali needs regional solutions. ECOWAS did it in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and recently Gambia. That's definitely one point of view. And I would be remiss if I didn't share a comment from Mahmoud Dicko, the opposition leader and imam. He had a warning for those in charge right now, for the military. Take a listen.
I ask you to remain vigilant. Remain vigilant. I would like to say this, and it is a clear and firm message, that no one, I mean no one, will be given a blank check. We led the fight. People died. The military came to finish it. But don't let them make the same mistake as the previous one.
We're getting to the near to the end of our show, so I'm going to ask each of you to very briefly, in one sentence, give us your predictions for what's going to happen. It can be short-term or long-term. Let's start with Fatima.
I think I think I was very hopeful after the conference on the validation of the term of references. I'm very, very hopeful, because I think that the military, they have a very agenda to make this thing very inclusive. But my only problem is I'm hoping that the international community will be with what the national people also wanted. So I could see, I'm seeing a very smooth transition, but with the international community alone, a smooth transition, I guess.
Smooth transition. Mohammed, very short, one sentence. What is your prediction?
I am very hopeful, because Malian people are strong people. We need change, that's obvious, but for change to come, we need time. And we don't have time because we are under pressure of ECOWAS. So in the coming days, I'm sure that we will come out with the transition plan and choose leader who
change and hope.
Transition.
Got it.
Change and hope. Yes,
change and hope. Niagale, very quickly, one sentence.
one sentence. I will not make prediction, but I really do hope that the civilian population will be put at the heart of the transition, because they are those who are suffering from the political and security crisis today.
Got it.
They have
the people at the center. Put the people at the center. Thank you so much, Niagale, Fatima, Mohammed, for joining the show. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.